Good afternoon, everyone. This is Rob Hann here at the Rangers Journal, and welcome to today's match preview for the game on Sunday against Motherwell in the League Cup semi-final. Today with us we have Ross. How are you today, mate?
Afternoon, Rob. Good afternoon to all the listeners. How are we doing? All right? All good.
Yeah, glad to see you. Glad to be here. Just to get formalities out of the way, we are in association with Manon Inverclyde, and we are proudly sponsored by Premier VPN. To if you want to go and make sure you get secure, safe VPN, please go check the guys out at Premier VPN. So, yeah, let's get straight into it. The Motherwell preview. Are you, first of all, Ross? Are you going on Sunday? Have you got a ticket? Have you flogged it? What's happening with yourself?
I'll probably be getting dragged kicking and screaming to Hampden on Sunday, which I think a lot of us will be. I'd probably go for an extra jar in the pub before it, I think, because to get through this, I think it's going to be a bit of a slog. I think we're all at a stage now where going is a chore, but we keep going. We keep showing up because we love Rangers, and if we're going to be positive, we love Rangers.
Yeah.
So nothing will stop us doing that, regardless of results, regardless of anything like that at all. What about yourself?
Yeah, same. Ticket for Sunday is secured, as much as it might now be grudgingly secured. Yeah, I mean, looking forward to it in a way, but at the same time, just hoping that it doesn't become too much of a toxic atmosphere after obviously the result on Wednesday night. And I guess that kind of leads us into just maybe a quick summary of the game on Wednesday. Just try and put it to the back of our minds after this. But I never managed to watch much of the game. I seen the highlights afterwards, but again, probably helped me not watching the full 90 minutes. What about yourself? Were you there? Did you watch the full game or just catch the highlights?
No, I watched the full game. I don't think it was anything that we didn't expect. We were I was on the kind of preview show earlier in the week, and we knew that Aberdeen are a form team.
Yeah.
The manager stepped up and instilled belief into them, and you don't need a new manager to put belief into an Aberdeen team when they're playing Rangers. We know what the game is for their mentality. That's Rangers showing up at Pittodries, their cup final.
Yeah.
Excuse me, sorry. I don't think that we knew that. Excuse me, sorry.
It's okay.
I don't think that when anything happened that we weren't going to expect. The manager's lineup was probably a little bit more conservative with the dropping of JFD, which was questionable, with him being in a bit of form and building up a bit of a relationship with Ned and Bajrami on the left. But I think that we're at a stage now where we know what to expect from this Rangers team for the majority of games. It's going to be slow. It's going to be conservative. It's going to be trying to keep possession without large amounts of penetration. And I think with Raskin and Barron, you get energy and you get work, but you don't always get consistent moments of quality.
Yeah.
And then obviously we started quite well for maybe the first minute or two. Fell away, Aberdeen then kind of really, really put their foot in the ball, played the game that they wanted to play. And, they get a goal, they get the deserved goal. And then obviously from then on, they could have scored. I think that's probably forgotten is that they literally got the park from the goal and hit the post. They then have a penalty. It's a poor penalty. It is a penalty kick. I think, Beaton kind of lost control of the game for 25 minutes, but it is a penalty kick. And then just obviously as the game goes on, we just kind of knew what would happen. We did play well for a spell in the second half, but what happens, you can't be surprised of the final outcome in the grand scheme of things.
Yeah, no, I agree, Ross. I think that the difficulty for me in watching the highlights again was just that, I get, the lineup, as you said, were conservative, taking players out because they might be at risk of injury, even though they're on good form, is a bit strange. Again, you probably come from the same school of thought that you always play your best players and the players that are in form as much as you can to have a bit of rhythm and solidity. So again, having Hefty drop out for Casemiro is initially a strange one. Again, I knew it would be a tough game because again, you can't deny Aberdeen have been in extremely good form since the manager came in, and you know you can't deny they deserved the victory. I think they definitely showed far more on the part than we did. Again, the only bright spot was the goal from Bairami, which was a great piece of individual skill. But aside from that, we never really showed very much. And again, that came in, as you said, the very kind of short spell of dominance that we had within the game. So, an overall picture, it just obviously wasn't good enough. But we kind of were half expecting to get into the game. So, yeah, it was a tough one to take. We can now hopefully put the league duties aside for at least another week, and hopefully look forward to this game on Sunday against Motherwell. I know that they had a good result against Dundee United again on Wednesday night. I think they won 2-1. So they'll be going in with a wee bit of confidence and a wee bit of good form into this game, Ross. But what's your thoughts on the Motherwell lineup or the team to date so far?
They've had a great start to the season, I think, by their standards. Stuart Ketwell's a good manager at this level. I think he did a good job at Ross County before, and he's a decent coach. I think that they've only lost 3 games this season. Excuse me, 3 games. 2 of them are to teams that are above them in the table.
Yeah, that's okay.
And they've the other team was Dundee. I think it was last week they get beat off Dundee. Who are a team that they're kind of aiming for the same part of the table.
Yeah.
So Stuart Ketwell's done a great job there. Motherwell are a team that obviously are not great financially. They tend to have a big turnover of players every season. They maybe tend to lose 9, 10, 11 players every year. But they've got a gem in the middle of the park that they've managed to keep, and they're building around, and he's proven to be a real star for them. So they're coming in with, I think they'd be coming in with all the belief in the world that, the state that we're in, if they come and they let their, they're not a one-man team, but if they let Miller dictate the play, then he can pick passes and he can push them forward and really cause us some serious issues. So they'll begin in with all the belief in the world that of the 3 teams they could have drawn, we're the one they would have wanted, and that's probably a sad indictment of the state that we're in. But if we don't get our backsides in gear, then it could be another afternoon where at the end of it we might not be the happiest bunch.
Sure. Yeah. No. Take that on board, Ross. I think it'll definitely be it won't be a walk in the park. I know we've had some good results, or at least one good result with them against them in the league at Hampden earlier this season. Funnily enough, that was the game where Cherny scored his first goal for us. So again, I'd hope to have him back in the starting lineup, and continuing his good form into that game. Again, just touching on their key players, as you said, they lost a number of players in the summer, like Blair Spittle going to Hearts. Obviously Liam Kelly coming to us. Although having not seen him yet, still a bit of a strange one. But yeah, as you said, they've kind of retained their key asset, which is Lennon Miller. I've seen through various news reports that he's likely to captain the side on Sunday against us. So again, it'll be a kind of massive stage for him to come on, and especially as the kind of leading the team out in a semi-final against Rangers. Maybe just touching on his quality just for a moment before we look to ourselves. He's clearly had a lot of admirers, not only in the summer but probably prior to that. He's obviously a key player for Motherwell. Do you think we'll be able to kind of keep him quiet, or do you think what's your thoughts on Lennon Miller?
I think a lot of credit needs to go to the way that Motherwell have allowed him to develop. It's not something you tend to see with the bigger clubs in Scotland. It's something that I think ourselves and Celtic don't do enough, is just give young players the faith to go and just express themselves and understand why we don't do it, because we're under such pressure to win every single week. Whereas Motherwell, if Motherwell finish 9th, it's not a disastrous season for them. It's not going to cost them a lot in the grand scheme of things. So it's an environment where it's allowed a player with clearly an exceptional talent to go and develop and learn to understand the game. He's clearly going to get a big move. They managed to keep him for another year, which I think's credit to probably the Motherwell board, because there would have been admirers, and he could go to, hypothetically, he could go to a club in England and get, what would have been life-changing money. I think it's a similar situation to Gilmour. Gilmour left to go to Chelsea at 16, and he basically set his family up for life at that point. So it would have been very, very tempting for him to leave and to do that, but he's maybe in a position where he's closed an extra year's development at Motherwell, and he's clearly reaping the benefits of it. You would assume that next year he'll turn 18 and he'll have, the pick of clubs to go to. The end thing at the moment for Scottish players seems to be Italy. He could easily go to Italy and work his way up. If he goes to a mid-table Italian team, he could be linked with a big wig within 2 or 3 seasons without a shadow of a doubt. He's probably the best young Scottish footballer, on in Britain at the moment. Obviously, there's better ones on the continent, but he's probably the best young Scottish footballer that you'll find, and he's not going to go for cheap. Motherwell, I think Motherwell have got a price, and they'll stick to the price, and he respects that as well. He doesn't seem like somebody that's going to kick up a fuss, especially now they've given him the responsibility of the captaincy. It clearly will mean a lot to him. It means a lot to the club. It will mean a lot to their supporters. So he's special, and I think they've won an absolute gem with him. And I think it's every decision that's been made has been for the benefit of the club and for him, and they seem to be reaping the rewards out of it.
Yeah, sure. I can't disagree with that, Ross. I think he's got a good head on his shoulders. As a quality player. Again, having that extra year at Motherwell definitely stand him in good stead. And as you say, I certainly don't think he'll be short of options either come January and the summer if they manage to retain him for the rest of the season. But yeah, he's definitely one to keep an eye on Sunday, and certainly don't want to allow him to get into any sort of rhythm that would allow us to kind of allow him and Motherwell to dictate the play on Sunday. I see we have Billy joining us. Billy, how are you this afternoon, pal?
I'm okay, mate. Sorry for the kind of mix up with us. I'm actually doing a service on my car and something went wrong, which I'm still in the middle of fixing. So I just thought I'd pop in for 5 minutes. That's okay.
Aye, sure. Yeah, no
I didn't want to miss out totally.
That's quite all right. That's quite all right. We could have had a very, very, very short debrief of the game on Wednesday. We're just looking into the game for Sunday and just talking about Lennon Miller just as you came in there. So maybe just get your thoughts very briefly on Wednesday night, and then obviously look forward to the game on Sunday.
Yeah, I mean, Wednesday was unfortunately what I was expecting to happen. Aberdeen to be up for it, come out the blocks firing, and for us to do what we did. Start slowly, not bring the game to them, not really create anything till the second half. Barring obviously that offside goal. So it's worse than disappointment, mate. It's apathy now, because it's just what I expect the team to perform like, and they're doing exactly what I think they're going to be doing. And looking forward to Motherwell. I've no doubt we probably will win it, but I'm not looking forward to watching it. That's where I am with them.
Yeah, I can't disagree, Billy. I think that's what myself and Ross were just talking about there, is that we're hoping for a good result on Sunday, or else it'll become toxic very, very quickly. Again, we were just touching on the fact that Motherwell are a good bit of form. They'd obviously won on Wednesday night. I think they were at home, so they'll be going at the game with a bit of confidence. And obviously riding some good form, as Ross kind of touched on. And again, probably their key player that we were looking at was Lennon Miller. So even if you just want to give your kind of thoughts very quickly on Motherwell and Lennon Miller particularly.
I mean, he's been a standout player. I'm not an in the know type person, but I do some work for one of the I don't know if he's on the Motherwell board, but he certainly has been involved in Motherwell board level. Apparently, we've not contacted them at all about any interest in him. So there's nothing on the kind of transfer front, and what they're looking for him for probably isn't something we would spend on a Scottish young player that's not, a proven, 3-4 seasons in the top team. So I don't see any. I think he's a really good player, and I'd love to see him sign for us, but it doesn't look like we're either interested or asking the question about him. But I think he'll be quite influential. Whether he's enough to carry them, over to a victory over us, maybe what we've seen on Wednesday night, maybe they can. But certainly they've had a lot of deficiencies showed up this season. They're not losing them. They needed as much goals as they were last season. Obviously, we played them earlier on. I thought we kind of dominated that game. It was a great goal by Cherney. I think Proper scored an own goal in that game as well. So we're back at Hampden to play them, and I think we will win. They are playing well, but we still have a much higher budget and much more expensive players than them. So we should be beating them comfortably. I don't think it'll be comfortable, but I think we'll beat them. But they're certainly doing better than last season.
Yeah, no, I agree, Billy. I think they've, as kind of Ross touched on, they continually season upon season lose, or more than likely lose their best players, but still manage to churn out, either from their youth or manage to buy in, quality players or decent quality enough players to keep them, within that kind of mid section of the table. They've not really been flirting with relegation of late. Again, Stephen Kettlewell is a good manager from his time at Ross County and before. So, they're definitely going into the game, even with a point to prove, just to, knowing that, Rangers as a team are probably in a bit of a vulnerable moment, and they may look to kind of capitalise on that. But yeah, let's kind of try and turn attention towards ourselves. So, bearing in mind the likelihood that there will be changes to the first team lineup on Sunday, Ross, what are your thoughts on who do you think will be starting for us in the afternoon kickoff?
I mean, I think that it's probably wouldn't be unexpected to see a manager under pressure stick with what he's got. I don't think that's something that's unusual for like I say, normally when managers are kind of have been under a bit of cost, they'll probably revert to something that they know. So I think he'll keep the same kind of similar lineup. Jeffy might come back in at the side. I think there's probably a good shout for that. Proper, I think we were expecting him to go back in at Pittodrie on Wednesday night. That didn't happen. Maybe his confidence is just shot. Maybe he's just not what we thought we were getting. I don't know. It's hard to predict. I didn't think that last Sunday we would have made as many changes as we did. But however, I would have liked to see the goalkeeper change. I think we just need a little bit of freshness there, and but I suppose with it being a cup semi-final as well, it's kind of you're damned if you do and you're damned if you don't for the manager. I mean, personally, I think I would like us to just go for it.
Yeah.
Whether we will or not, I don't know. I say we're talking about him being too conservative, but I mean, I don't see why we can't just in a one-off game just go for it. And if you win the game by 3 or 4, then that's all you can really ask for. But like I say, if Motherwell will show up and they'll have a game plan as well, and if we can let them dictate that, then as well that can cause issues. But if we show up and it's something I seem to say in every single pod, if we show up with attitude and a belief that we're going to win the game, then that's the first step towards it. The rest of it will take care of itself, I think. Sure.
No, I agree. I think part of me does hope that he makes a couple of changes to make it a bit more of a positive lineup than what we saw in Pittodrie on Wednesday night. Billy, what about yourself? What are your thoughts towards the starting lineup on Sunday? Do you think he'll keep it the same? Do you think he'll make any drastic changes that we don't see coming?
I think he'll probably put Tav and Jeffy back, right and left back, respectively. I don't think he'll go with Proper. He's completely lost confidence in him. Probably Proper himself has lost a lot of confidence. He just doesn't seem to handle the physicality, which is not. It's not just him in that team. it's telling that he doesn't trust two of his signings to start in one of the second most important game, I guess, of the season on Wednesday night. So I think you're looking at a kind of similar midfield. Whether he brings Diamande in, he probably does actually. And again, the options we've got on the wings, no Matondo as far as I'm aware. I guess Hadji still is available, but he's not likely to throw him in. So I think we're just looking at maybe not the same team as we got on Wednesday, but the same team we've seen an awful lot this season, with Dessers up front and Czerny and Bayrami on the wing. So it's uninspiring. I think a whole formation change would maybe get me back on side with the manager a wee bit, but he's shown, as Ross is just saying, he's probably going to just stick to what he's done, what hasn't been working. So I don't expect much in the way of a difference in formation, mate. But the players need to bring it up on themselves, because it's a cliche, but it looks like quite a few of them don't really want to play for them, or don't know what they're meant to be doing in the system, and it's plain for us to see. I don't know what the manager doesn't see, that this formation isn't working with those players. And what I'd like to see more than anything else is just to get a bit more physical with these. We're too easily pushed over and pushed out the way. You even going back to the Kilmarnock game, Suter is just pushed off the ball and allowed to be manhandled, and he's a big player. He shouldn't be. Proper's the same. Dessers is the same. The only one I really see with a bit of grit is Raskin and Barron in midfield, and they're both they're not big players, but there's no real. These players that I've mentioned are big enough to be physical. They're just not doing it. I'd like to see a bit of that a bit of steel come back into the play.
Sure, no, I take on board that point, Billy. I think that's the difficult thing for us at the moment, is that we've been again, I'm sure it's been touched on many pods before this one, but we lack an identity. We've discussed this before in a separate pod as well, Billy. There's a lack of kind of Scottish identity within the team. Albeit we brought Barron in the summer. He's looked good in the majority of the games he's played. Okay, he's maybe had the odd slip up here or there, but for me, the team technically will always be good. Because of the players that we bring on always seem to be very technically good players, but there is a clear lack of physicality and aggression in the team, and that goes back to something that he pointed out when he first came in about the kind of four pillars. We keep talking about the four pillars that the club has, but the four pillars that he has as a manager. Trying to be the fittest team, the most physically aggressive team, the best team. Best team mentality. Those are ones that certainly pop up in my mind when you look at this team and go, where is that? You've been here for 13 months, and have you really laid any sort of blueprint down that can be clearly seen by the fans? That highlights those points that you mentioned when you first came to the club. And I think for the majority of fans, myself included, you'd say that yes, you play some nice football from time to time, but we've rarely ever seen it. It's been maybe a handful of games. I know we've discussed that Hearts game at the turn of the year, Billy, before it. When Cortez and Diamande come in and they looked like absolute diamonds. That just seems to have fallen off a cliff. Obviously, Cortez is injured. Diamande just doesn't. There just seems to be a problem with him on where he has played, whether he's played as an 8, a 6, or a 10. He just doesn't seem suited for that specific position. Yes, he's a midfielder, but it doesn't look as if he's, again, as you said, the formation that we play doesn't suit him. We've still got a lot of unanswered questions for the way the team plays, and the style that we thought we would hopefully see from this manager. So it's a difficult one to answer. But I mean, bringing Ross in, Ross, what are your thoughts? Maybe again, just on a general point before coming back to the game, about the manager and the style of play that we've seen over the last year or so.
I think the 4 points you said there about, you say the 4 pillars, was we were going to be the best team tactically, technically, physically, and mentally, and we're technically incompetent. We're tactically naive at best. We're physically weak, and mentally we're all over the shop. So the four of them are unacceptable for somebody that's been in the job for as long as he has. He's actually made the team worse, and I don't know if that's because of the way that he comes across. I don't know if it's been. I know there was issues with Cantwell. We know he lost. There was guys that kind of get pushed out the door in the summer, but he's the one thing I will give the manager credit for is I think he's made a lot of decisions that people wanted him to make, but now that he's having to deal with the fallout of it, I think from the fallout of it from the rest of the team and the rest of the club, I think it's probably not helped matters. But at the same time, the parts of the club that he can control, he doesn't do well enough, and that's the problem. And I think every single form of media you'll read or you'll listen to will say the same thing: is that if he made a team look like we knew what we were doing or we were trying something, he would get far more leniency and probably still have more credit in the bank than he does.
Yeah.
The fact that we look even more hopeless than we did at the start of the season, we just look like we're completely devoid of any ideas, of any confidence, of anything at all. That's part of his job is to instill that. We know that there's serious issues within the core of the club. I don't think that's controversial to say, and the parts of it that are affecting the overall. I'm trying to think of the word. The overall mood around the place doesn't help. But players will always look for excuses. I don't think the manager's helped himself by also pulling out the only excuse he seems to have, which is the team's gelling. The team's been together for long enough now for guys to be able to pass 10 yards to each other, to be able to play a 1-2. It just doesn't slide. The best two players in the team at the moment, or the two that look actually like they're semi-competent, is the two latest guys in the door, in Bajrami and Casemiro. Bajrami especially actually is the only guy in the team that now looks like some sort of footballer. You see it with his goal on Wednesday night. Even when we've been bad, he's the guy that looks like he can pull us out of something. I think Czerny is as well, but Czerny lacks the physicality to really make a step up. I think in this league, I think when you're playing against banks of five and guys that are 6'5" and are allowed to kick you, you can only do so much. And when you have the moments that pay off, they look good. I think every goal he scored has looked really, really good. But in terms of the overall state of everything, it's an absolute disaster. And we know exactly what's coming. It's just a matter of when did the people in charge, or the person in charge at this moment, it seems to be, when do they pull the trigger? Because it's only going to go one way, but depending on when they do it will determine how much of the damage is attributed towards Philippe Clement.
Sure, I totally get that, Ross. I think it's so difficult at the moment that again, it was touched on obviously after the game in the post-match reaction that we had. That again, they had three players from the summer in the starting lineup. The majority of the team have played there before. They know the conditions, they know the atmosphere that they're going to face, and they still couldn't help the three newer players, if you want to call them that. With that, it's just a bit of a shambles. It's so difficult, and bringing it back to yourself, Billy, and the regression point. Sorry, that it certainly seems as if we have regressed from the summer. We've obviously lost a lot of big hitters. The players that we've got again seem technically competent, but they just don't have maybe the mindset. Touching on what we've discussed there regarding the pillars, being tactically, technically, physically, and everything else that accompanies it. We just don't seem to have something that either the players want to play for or the manager's trying to implement, but he's just not getting what he wants from either the players or the club in general.
Yeah, I mean, you talk about the big hitters leaving. I don't think there's any of us that wanted any of them to stay. So that was the right decision. That all those players going. In fact, there's a school of thought that there's still one player that needs to have left who's still here, maybe even two. So it's not that was a mistake. It's the signing policy. I don't know if it is the players that he's brought in don't look like the type of players that he said he wanted to bring in, physically strong players, technically gifted or whatever. And certainly in a few of Scott's interviews with the fans of other teams he's managed, it was strong physical players that he wanted. And I just, athletic big players, we don't seem to have brought those type of players in, and we're not playing a particularly. It's not like he's went, oh, these guys are actually good for another style of play. There's no style of play.
Yeah.
It's just I don't even know what it's just nothing. It's just blandness. So just regards your point about the players again, that was right. They needed to go. There was a time for they were Gerrard's players and they'd been playing under two other managers. They needed to be shipped out, get the wage bill down. That was important. We know that. But I think the point of how much damage is going to be attributed to Clement is a really good point, because the longer it goes on, the more it actually falls on. Because, okay, the board aren't, John Bennett's not chairman anymore, but he's still there. He'll still be involved in conversations. They still could make this decision, and the longer they leave it, I think we all know he's not going to pull Clement. That isn't going to pull this back. Even world football at all, is there anybody that any manager's got to this stage with the fans where 99%, possibly even more, don't want them to be there? And that's despite having done this the last two seasons with two other managers. None of us want to do it, but none of us really can see any other option. It needs to be somebody else. So it's just we're here again, deja vu all over again, isn't it? And is it November? Is that the month that the managers normally go in?
Yeah, it definitely seems that way, Billy. It definitely seems that way again. Granted, he's brought the wage bill down. He's tried to bring in players for the future, to a certain degree. But and I understand it's a difficult process in trying to identify and recruit players that are of a high quality, but for a low cost. Again, prime example we can see in Hefty's. He's come in and he's been very good for us. In the majority of games he's played, same goes for Connor Bayrami, who's shown what he can do in flashes, even though he's not playing in his preferred position as a 10. The difficulty with that is that the players, kind of, as you touched on, Billy, that there are some players that have been here for a long number of years that have either just given up the ghost and have kind of, again, proverbially down tools, just don't have the same hunger that they maybe once had when they first came in. And those are the players that we really need to look to move on and try and build into a style of play that we can kind of get on board with as fans. As you said, it's just difficult at this moment in time that from what we're seeing, the manager's going to carry the can as they always do, for the lack of either quality on the pitch, the lack of fight or hunger on the pitch from the players. Because again, as we all know, it's far easier to get rid of the manager than the players. And that's the concern I think we all have as fans, is that well, me personally, I agree, Billy. I just don't see it getting better, but hopefully it doesn't get any worse. And that the difficulty then comes from the non-playing side, where we need to identify and bring in a chairman and a CEO that can make the decisions for the club that need to be taken, rather than relying on the wrath of fans at games that are eventually going to, become far more, or become more and more, visible, audible. I know that the Union Bears have obviously had a number of banners up in the last couple of weeks at games. They're certainly making their feelings known through that, and I guess it carries into the fan bases at large that we're we're again kicking the can down the road until some point the board bites the bullet and has that discussion with the manager. The difficulty being is the year's extension that we gave to his current contract, which then adds to money's owed, and I guess we're already in that process with the kind of previous two managers that we've had, that we may still owe them money. And again that ties into obviously the kind of finances that were talked about during the week, which I know we're not here to talk about, but again it gave some insight into the way the club has kind of been run up till the summer, but from the summer on we've just not seen much signs of positive progression. But it's a difficult one, and again, even just taking into consideration some of the comments that we're getting left is, maybe we have a conversation around, is there someone out there that we think could come in on an interim basis if the decision is taken at some point, whether it's after a bad result on Sunday or not. I know that there's I seen Doug, I'm trying to find it, Doug's comment about Philip Cocu on an interim basis. I know there's a couple other people that have put in, like Sir Billy Davis and Alex McLeish, which I don't think is probably the right way we should go down, but I definitely think we should be maybe looking closer at home for a manager rather than a European one. I do think, and again, like to get your guys' opinion on it, whether going for a non-UK based manager or UK manager, Scottish or British, it doesn't ever seem to land us in a good place. I mean, Dick Advocat aside, when he had money to spend, any kind of foreign coach or non-UK based coach that we've had, it never seems to work out as well as we hope it would. So, Ross, I'll maybe come to you first. What are your thoughts on the position if the worst case scenario happens and Clement is relieved of his duties? Is there a conversation to be had about a non-European coach, shall we say, a UK-based coach?
I wouldn't say Clement being sacked is the worst case scenario at this particular moment in time, to be brutally honest with you, Rob. I don't think that a foreign manager is always a bad thing. I think it just needs to be the right person. If totally pie in the sky hypothetical scenario, if somebody like he's working his way down the pyramid, Mourinho, do you think Mourinho could go in there and do a worse job than a Scottish manager? Do you know what I mean? It's got to be the right guy at the right time, and for too long we've just not had that.
Yeah.
I think when Steven Gerrard, which basically begins the cycle, is when Steven Gerrard left and we hired Giovanni Van Bronckhorst. All at the time, everybody went, that makes perfect sense. He's won a title in Holland. He's won cups. He understands Rangers. He's been at Rangers in more successful times. So I think there's maybe that part of, well, we're not Rangers of 1998 anymore. So maybe the fans were still expecting to go and win the treble every year, and that just maybe wasn't what was expected. I still think he was, harshly treated, but at the same time, when the time was up, the time was up. We knew that. Michael Beale was just a disaster. It was red flags right from the get-go. Philippe Clement at the time when he was appointed made sense. It seemed to be between him and Kevin Muscat. Both of them had positives, both of them had negatives. But when you looked at Philippe Clement, you couldn't turn around and say there's 10 red flags about appointing him. He was a multiple club title winner. He'd been at Monaco, which Monaco are a real hit or miss club. I think anybody that's watched Monaco in the last 20 years know they've been, really good or disastrous. I think he had issues with their board as well. So it made a lot of sense. He didn't come across at the start as somebody that you would want to mess with. His demeanour and his stature and these things matter. It made sense. So it just needs to be the right guy. Van Bronckhorst was a nice guy. I think anybody that's ever heard any stories about him, or even the players were speaking about him, he was a really, really nice guy. Michael Beale changed his demeanour. to be a manager, and I just don't think it worked. Philippe Clement came in with a reputation of being a little bit harder. I think he was because he was quite hard as a footballer as well. He's 6'5" defender. It's not something you lose. He came in and said all the right words. He said, forgive me for paraphrasing, but he used the term "stop doing shit lateral passes." That was his exact words in his first press conference. He came in and said all the right things, but circumstances change, and I think that he's just fell out with people. I think there's been other circumstances. I don't think he's a bad manager. He's just not the right guy for Rangers at this moment in time. I think there's just been too many circumstances that have caused a chain of events in which it's now going to fall on him losing his job. I think the next guy that comes in will actually benefit from it because he's made a lot, like I said previously, he's made a lot of decisions that had to be made that in the long run were going to affect the squad and were going to affect the club, but had to be made. We're talking about cutting the wage bill. When you cut the wage bill, you're going to have to take a drop in player quality. That's just what happens. So he has to carry the can for the quality of the players dropping. What he's not done is, like as Billy said, he's not adjusted his philosophy and what he needs to do as a manager to counteract that. What he's done is he's just kind of went, right, well, the players aren't as good. I'm going to get into play this rigid, ridiculous formation, and it's not going to work. Mark Warburton was exactly the same. He didn't have the players at the level he wanted to play at. You could see what he was doing, but once the quality of player changed, he couldn't do it. Bearing in mind that at the start of the 2016-17 season, Mark Warburton signs Joey Barton, Josh Windass, Matt Crooks, and Nico Kranjčar. How many of them could really play in a fluid 4-3-3? None of them. So how were you expecting it to work? But we had to take at the time what we could get. He also signed Joey Garner. Joey Garner was never, ever going to be a guy that could play in a fluid front three. Come on. With the front three the previous season of Martin Waghorn, Kenny Miller, and Barry Mackay, all three of them could play anywhere across the front three, and it worked. He then brings in a target man to play passing football. It doesn't work. You just need to have the right guy who can play the right style. If that's the case, I think at the moment we need to be less conservative because we don't have the guys to do it. I don't actually know if we have enough players to play super attacking either. And I know obviously the idea at the moment is, I think a lot of people are kind of jumping on the Kevin Muscat train because you think it's just going to be gung-ho football. Yeah. I like the idea of it. Sounds really, really good. We all want to go and watch a team and be entertained and stick 4 and 5 past every team. I still don't think we've got the guys to play it. If that was the case, he would, again, I'm just throwing a total hypothetical scenario. Just say, for instance, he finishes, they win the league. The league deciders on Saturday. They win the league. He wins the cup and he comes in the international break and he says, this is how I want to play. And he comes in and changes it slightly for the guys that he's got. You'll start to see results. And then come January, he might get a couple of guys back for injury that can play a bit more direct. He might get a signing in. We might have to sell a player or two. That's fine. I mean, anybody in that team, I think you could justify leaving quite easily. Probably, maybe apart from, Bajrami, because he's been the big money signing. He looks like somebody you could build your team around. Yeah. But it's just, like I say, I know it's one of those things. It's just, it has to be the right guy, whether he's British or whether he's Spanish or Italian or Australian or American or whatever. I don't think it matters. But what they need to do is they need to come in and they need to understand what they need to do with the players they've got, how they get through it, how they navigate Scottish football. I think they need to instill a little bit of a siege mentality. I think that there's been too long at Rangers where it's let's be pals with everybody. And I think within that, it's fine, but people will just walk over you. The clubs will walk all over you. I think there needs to be somebody in there with a set of, a big set of cojones to get in there and make it really us against them, or us against the world. At this moment in time, I think that's where you'll start getting, if players buy into that, you'll get the results at a point. But I do understand where you're coming from. Scottish guys can do that as well, but I think that there needs to be a little bit more than just bringing a guy. I know Derek McInnes is the ideal Scottish football, but he's been at clubs and played in teams where being compact and playing a bit dirty and playing for set pieces will get you what you need to get. But is that really the way we need to be going long term? I don't think so.
Yeah, I think it's definitely a difficult one. It's definitely difficult considering the manager's still in his job at the moment, and obviously it's, we can talk to the cows come home about any other kind of suitable candidates. I mean, Billy, just taking your point on it briefly before we kind of look into the starting 11 for Sunday. What are your thoughts on the kind of coaches aspect of it? As I guess as we say, it's probably getting to the point where it does become untenable if results still continue to go against us. Yeah, what are your kind of thoughts on the if Clement were to be replaced?
For me, it's already untenable, mate. I think it's just past the point now. Whether the board continue on with them, that's their choice. But I don't think anything's going to dramatically improve. I don't really need to add much to what Ross has said. He's covered a lot of it. There's hardly, if you've seen a Scottish manager, show me the list of candidates that you think could come in and do better. Now, we do have quite a unique league, but it doesn't mean that it's rocket science to understand. Thielen has come in at Aberdeen and, he goes to Celtic Park and comes back for 2-0 down. Could have won the game for, where the ball hits Duke, I think it was a handball, wasn't it? It could have been a little bit to the left or right, and it could have just been a 3-2 win. So we've not had a manager do that since Gerrard, go there and take the game to them. So it doesn't necessarily have to be somebody Scottish. I get the point in the last couple of, Gio and Clement being foreign. Or maybe they don't understand the league. It's not that hard to understand the league. It's a physical league. Two teams really dominate mostly. We're not currently one of those teams, unfortunately. But two teams usually dominate, and the teams sit in, play 11 men behind the ball, park the bus. There's a way to play against that, and Clement talked a good game when he first came in. That's the type of football he wanted. Even getting to the byline, quick passes in the box, but we don't seem to be doing that. So there's, again, not much to add on what Ross has said, but I just don't necessarily think it needs to be a Scottish manager, because I don't think,
Sure.
To be honest with you, McLeish would be my top Scottish manager candidate, and that's not me saying I want McLeish. It's just I don't think there's anybody any better that's Scottish at the moment, which is a shame, because it's good to have a Scottish backbone. But that's my 2 cents on it. I mean, I think the time has come. I don't think anything's going to change. I don't think we're going to dramatically, steamroller teams 5 or 6-0 for the next 6 months and claw back all these points.
Yeah, no, I would definitely tend to agree with you there, Billy. I think it's, unless he makes dramatic changes to the start lineup and starts going with maybe a more attacking formation or just more attacking players, I think. With that being said, we'll kind of look to wrap things up. So we'll tie back into the game on Sunday. So, Ross, coming to yourself first, who do you think should come into the start lineup to help us maybe have more of an attacking threat, and obviously as we look to win the game and get through to the final in December?
Sad that a preview pod is again talking about so many things off the park. It's just the way our Rangers at the moment, and it is that the results and things are just becoming irrelevant. It's just there's just so many other issues that until they're sorted, the rest of it will just be a formality. We'll just show up. We might win. We might play well. We might lose. We might not. Who knows? It doesn't really matter anymore. To be honest, it's just a sad indictment of where we are. But I think, like I said, I try and you want to try and be positive, and I would love to say that I think he's going to play an attacking 4-3-3 or 4-4-2, or with guys that want to just go and home. But I just think he's going to play he's kind of tried and tested stuff. It's if he's, I mean, there's kind of reports today. I mean, depending how valid they are, that he's been kind of given some backing by the board. So he's not a guy under pressure to throw something at the wall and see if it sticks. So I think he's just going to go with what he's been doing. He's drilled the players to do whatever he's been doing. So he'll probably just play. He'll probably stick with Butland just because of it's a semi-final. He'll probably play, Tavernier will play again. He'll play Suter, Proper, or Balogun. I think he'll bring Jeffrey back. I don't see why he would want. One of the small bits of joy we've been getting has been the Raskin and Barron duo in the middle of the park. I think that's looked like something to work with. I think they've got a lot of energy and a lot of drive. I think they maybe just miss that little bit of passing quality in the midfield. I think if they could get a third guy in that can match their energy levels and have the quality, Diomande can do that, but I still think he's too lazy and he can't play as a 10. And if he's insistent on playing a 10, he'll probably play Lawrence there. If Czerny's, recovered from his illness, he'll probably play on the right. Bajrami, you can't leave him out. He's the guy at the moment for us. I think he's the guy that he's got the best chance of getting us a goal or just producing a moment of magic. And I mean, I'd rather go to the Duke of Wellington statue, take the traffic cone off and stick it up front rather than play Cyril Dessers, to be brutally honest with you. I know we could stick Dessers on top of the Duke of Wellington statue and just leave him there, to be brutally honest with you, because you'll know he's just... I seen there was a statistic that he's now on the longest dry spell since he's been at Rangers of 8 games, which if you think about the amount of criticism that he's had is actually baffling, because you thought he'd had longer than that. So I mean, if he plays, then he must be due a goal, but he's just become a player that's just more interested in lying in the ground and moaning at the referee as opposed to making the right decisions in the box to try and find a chance to score a goal. I mean, I would play. I mean, even Hamza Igman, when he started, hasn't looked remotely at the level required. We've had fleeting moments from a player, but you can't expect him to come in and be able to lead the line himself. It's just not. It's not fair on him. Danilo's just becoming another sick note. So you've kind of got to stick with what you've got, and I think that's probably what it's going to be. I think obviously, like I say, it'll be Tavernier, the kind of usual back four, the double pivot of Raskin, Barron, Czerny, Bajrami, Lawrence in the 10, and then the traffic cone up front.
Yeah, I kind of disagree, Ross. I mean, Billy, do you think there'll be any changes to what Ross has kind of said there? Do you think there'll be?
No, I think that'll be pretty much it. And I like your traffic cone thing. I'm going to use that and pretend it was me that came up with it.
I mean, at least it's orange. I mean, at least it's got a good staunch colour. I mean, at least it's orange.
Yeah.
I mean, but no, we'd end up putting out a green traffic cone, knowing the way Rangers are running the now. Do you know what I mean? That's the kind of thing we would do.
Yeah, I mean, personally, I don't see much changes from what you've said, Ross. I think back four will probably stay the same again. If Balogun's fit, he'll probably start with Suter, considering that's the way it's been the last couple of games. I mean, if Proper comes in, obviously Clement must trust him to a certain degree. If he brings him back in, I think Raskin and Barron are probably the only two ones that you could guarantee at this point that'll probably start playing. But then again, you never know. He might just throw Diomande in just for the fun of it all. Front three, Czerny will probably come back in. Lawrence, if he's fit, hopefully starts. Bajrami probably start out left again. Likelihood is that our favourite Nigerian striker starts up front, which it's the fact he's in such poor form at the moment, and we've not got a backup for him other than Eagleman, and Eagleman again shouldn't have to be thrust into the spotlight, especially in what we would normally term a big game. Even despite the circumstances of the previous week, to throw him in from the start in a cup semi-final would definitely be saying something from Clement's standpoint. Again, even looking at the options on the bench, you're potentially looking at Hadji making some form of return after his red card in the league a couple of weeks ago. Other than that, there's not really anyone that pops out in my mind that you would be confident of pushing to get a start. Danilo might make the bench. Dibble will likely make the bench. Sterling again. These guys seem to be competent enough players, but they're probably not what we need in the start lineup to bring a more attacking threat, is what we kind of touched on at the top of the pod. So I think with that being said, we'll try and wrap up in a positive manner. We'll ask for predictions. So Ross, come to you first. What's your prediction for Sunday? Oh, you're on mute, mate.
Sorry, my apologies.
That's
I just
okay.
don't want
That's
to,
all right.
don't want to talk about it anymore. I've had enough.
I know. Tell me about it.
I'll try and end on a semi-positive note. I think we'll win, and I think we'll win by 3-1 with a kick from the traffic cone.
That
I'll stick with that.
That is.
With the traffic cone.
I'm not a betting man, but if I were, I would probably be putting money on that, to be honest. Because I think. There you go.
Sorry,
there
on
you
you
go.
go.
Sorry.
I was just
again,
thinking. I'm just going to say that.
No, sorry. On you go. Sorry.
I was just going. Obviously, it's one of those things that you kind of want to. I think it has been all doom and gloom, but I think that if you like, and I seem to say this in every pod I'm on now, if we show up and we actually just have a bit of belief and just a bit of oomph and a bit of desire to want to make it to another final and have a chance to win a trophy, then that should trump everything else. And if we show up and just do what we can do, not what we will do, what we can do as a team, with a bit of intensity, then there's no reason why we can't win the game. But whether we do that or not depends.
Yeah. Billy, what about yourself? Predictions for the game on Sunday?
A win, but an uninspiring 2-0 win, a goal in each half, but not really a pretty game. That's what I expect.
Yeah. Again, as your head and your heart goes against each other, and my heart's saying hoping for a better performance than the last couple of weeks. But I do think it'll end up being a turgid game. It's sad to say, as sad as it is to say. I'm hopeful we win. All I'm going to say is that I am hopeful we win it within 90 minutes, and we don't need extra time or penalties to get through. Yeah, I'll try and keep the positivity going and say we'll get through 2-1. I don't think this defence will keep a clean sheet, sadly, but I do think we'll get through 2-1. Hopefully within 90 minutes. All right, guys. I think we've covered as much as we can in just under an hour. So, Ross, come to yourself. Any last words before we close out?
I mean, I think there's, like I say, as I said earlier, it's sad that it's been a pod talking more about off-field stuff than we should be talking about how we could be on the road to recovery. But it's the predictability of Rangers on the park at the moment. We just know what's going to happen, and if we're guys that show up, a few of us probably show up after a few beers, knowing what's going to happen in the game. Guys that managers, opposition managers, will know what's going to happen. They're paid to do it, so they'll know how to counter that, and that's what teams know now. Teams know that if they just show up and they get a bit of luck and they get the break of the ball and just a little bit extra percent, they can get something. And that's what's the sad part about it, is the predictability of it all. I mean, it's just hopefully, it's one of those things that I think we're all in agreement that if the result goes our way, which we think it will, then it doesn't change anything. If in the grand scheme of things, I think we're all probably in the camp that kind of it's only a matter of time now. If it doesn't go our way, then I think there's serious issues, and I think there needs to be a serious collection with the support towards what's really going on.
Sure. Well, hopefully we come out of it in a more positive mindset on Sunday night. Billy, any last words from yourself before we finish up?
No, I hope I'm wrong. I hope it's a really exciting game. We win by several goals. I just don't feel it. But no, thanks for having me on, Bob. Thanks for doing this.
Yeah, no worries. And again, just thanks to yourself, Billy. Thanks to yourself, Ross, for coming on this afternoon and allowing us to get this preview done. Although it's been probably slightly more more of a review than a preview, but hopefully it's been enjoyable for you both. We'll close out again. Thanks very much for Premier VPN for sponsoring the pod. Please reach out to them for all your VPN needs. Thanks to everyone in the comments that's watched along and added to the discussions, both in the comment section and for us here at the pod. And with that being said, hopefully you all enjoy your Sunday afternoon, and we will see you over the weekend for the post-match reaction, and into next week for other pods coming up on the channel. All that's left for me to say is every night is a Rangers journal.